this is the vlog where I talk about quarterly stories, which is my graphic novel that I hand write, hand letter, hand ink, and then hand to you, hopefully someday in print. But until that day, it's available serialized online at quarterlystories.com. It's a very personal story to me about faith and mental illness, and this is the vlog where I document the process and the progress of creating that graphic novel, on top of being a full-time art director, a full-time husband, and a full-time father. So today I'm kind of bummed out. I was gonna drop off my gallery prints for my Monty Python prints. They're in the back, and all kinds of stuff came up. One is my Honda, which is the car I drive. Usually you'll notice the car has changed. The tires are going out, so it looks like the tires are going to need to be replaced. So I had to trade cars with my wife, which is why I'm driving the Nissan right now. And then I drove all the way to Hollywood, downtown, right after work, excited to go to the gallery and drop off my work. And I had forgotten to take a look at the days of the week that they're open. So apparently they're closed from Monday through Wednesday, I think. So basically they aren't open until Wednesday. And so if you're familiar with Los Angeles, that has blown me back by a ton of time. So that little stupid mistake of me reading the wrong time, like thinking it was open on Monday, has pretty much set me back to where instead of getting home around 6, I'm now probably gonna get home around 9, and that's like 2 hours lost, which is kind of a bummer. You might also notice that it's like super windy, which is crazy, but it seems like there's also a mass amount of traffic, and so I'm now like kind of just hitting all this crazy rush hour traffic, and I feel kind of foolish. But I mean, that's part of it. That's part of life. I mean, you make stupid decisions and end up, losing time, and it's just one day. So my hope tonight is to hopefully get the next panel penciled for quarterly stories. Since it's Tuesday, I'm also trying to occasionally post some older work that I've done, like t-shirt graphics and t-shirt designs that I've done onto Instagram. So that's something else I'm going to try to do when I get home. But it was a little disappointing. It's kind of a bummer. We're in the middle of catalog season at work, so the likelihood that tomorrow and the next day are going to be really late work days is pretty high. And then the likelihood that that I'm gonna be able to get home and work on this stuff, I'm now 2 hours behind, and that kind of bums me out when I'm a person who runs on a crazy schedule. Now, keeping that in perspective, there's so much more to worry about in life than like losing 2 hours of a day. But it does kind of suck that this could have all been avoided if I had paid more attention to the actual deadline on that book. So now I'm like just pretty much where I would have been about an hour and a half ago if I had just left from work, which is kind of a bummer. And I've been driving for like about an hour and a half. So something I've been thinking about, is trying to sort of come up with more t-shirt design ideas, and I've been trying to find a window of time to add to come up with concepts for t-shirt designs, but that window just seems to shrink on a daily basis, and I really do need to hit concepting a little harder, but that gets complicated on a day where I lose 2 hours, because literally every minute's very precious and valuable of time, and so it's kind of a bummer to kind of miss that, because I was hoping to kind of get some more t-shirt concepts. The other thing that's frustrating about downtown Los Angeles while I'm complaining, is like people drive like maniacs in Los Angeles. It takes like 20 years to make a left turn, and people are jerks. They cut you off. They kind of work their way in there. And what's funny is, like, I used to think that Los Angeles had really bad drivers growing up in the LA area, and just like how every time you go to downtown it'd be like chaos. But then I realized that we're actually pretty good drivers when I moved to Portland, where you have some sincerely bad drivers living in Oregon, and at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know what this car is doing on my left or on my right. Not quite sure what he thinks he's doing. Anyhow, so yeah, I mean, like, so you'd have like seriously bad drivers in Oregon where like they didn't know how to merge. Like, they'd be trying to merge on a freeway and they'd be like, no, you go, no, you go, and the cars would just gradually slow to almost a stop, where they're just sitting parallel to each other like a game of patient chicken. And like, so living in Portland just made me really appreciate Los Angeles drivers, because I realized, like, we're terrible to each other when we drive, but we're pretty good drivers. Like, we're actually pretty talented drivers. We're just so used to driving that we drive like jerks. So anyhow, so now I'm going to take my little side route, which will hopefully bypass, like, you know, this mountain of traffic, and then hopefully get home. The gallery space does look kind of cool. It does look pretty interesting. And I also kind of want to explain, like, why I've been talking so much about Gallery 1988. I think part of it's, like, because Gallery 1988 is, it's a gallery that I've wanted to show at for a while. I approached them a long time ago to see if I could be a part of some of their group shows, because there used to be this get-together called WineboCon that was thrown for threadless designers, and it was like a wine tasting gathering and get-together with a lot of the designers on threadless. And I went to it, and I just kind of was picking the brain of a few people who are like way more talented and successful than I was at t-shirt design, and asking them like stuff about self-promotion, how they got known. And a lot of them were like, their answer was like, I did Gallery 1988. And keep in mind, this was years ago, years and years ago. So when I heard that, you know, being the kind of hungry artist that I was, and also at the time being a freelance illustrator, where, you know, like, at least in my experience, I guess, unless you get super famous, and that's kind of what you get known for, you get known enough to where you're never having to seek work. I was in a position where, you know, like, a good percentage of my job was trying to do self-promotion so that I could, you know, lure more clients in. And so instantly I emailed the gallery, and they actually accepted my work, and then and said I could be a part of their show. And they gave me a couple of invites to some of their shows, and I said I would do one, and then I never actually did it. I never could find the time to create it. And part of that was because when I was freelancing, most of my time had to be justified by immediate pay. And if not immediate pay, it had to be justified by pay that would pay within 30 days that was substantial enough, or 90 days that was substantial enough to where it would justify the time spent. Because pretty much all the time I spent was either hunting for or getting or completing projects, so that I could hopefully make like a decent end of the year wage. So anyhow, the point being, I basically didn't make time to do the art, and kind of regretted it, but let it pass. And they never contacted me again. Well, they contacted me again last year asking if I wanted to be a part of 2 gallery shows. And I agreed to do this one. And part of that is because of this vlog and some of the things that I've been thinking about and had been thinking about a year ago on this vlog, where I'm trying to get better at saying yes to things. So it's part of why I joined the National Cartoonist Society, part of why I have agreed to kind of show up and go to like those meetings with Jim Lujan and my buddies in LA. A lot of that stuff I used to turn down, just hanging out with other artists and having community with other artists, because I always felt really strapped for time and strapped for money. So I always felt like, well, if I'm going to spend that time, I need to be spending it making art or making money doing art. And I had come to the conclusion about a year and a half ago that I needed to get better at saying yes to things, that I was pretty good at turning things down because I was too busy, but that that a lot of the times, a lot of success, at least to me, seems like it's having potential opportunities that you say yes to. And this is very different from my old kind of viewpoint of things. And I'm a bit of a curmudgeon too, so like even building this YouTube community, joining Artcasters, a lot of this was the byproduct of me agreeing to say yes to things. And of course within reason. Like I had to not go to my NCS meeting on Sunday because at the end of the day, I had some higher priorities, and it's in catalog season at my work. So because of that, I've been having to pull a lot of overtime. And with the overtime, that means a lot of stuff got pushed. So there were higher priority things for me to do that weekend. But anyhow, point being, back to Gallery 1988. So part of why I'm kind of like really excited about the Gallery 1988 thing is because it's something I've never done. And I've done group shows and I've done art shows, but I've never done Gallery 1988. I've never done like a themed show at a gallery that had any sort of massive reputation to it. So I think part of it's curiosity too. Like I'm curious what my print sales will be like. I'm curious what the byproduct of promotion will be from this. I'm also curious because, like, it's been a while since I've done prints. It's been a while since I've tried kind of something outside of my own wheelhouse, because I've been so focused on creating comics and then just art direction at my work where I'm making designs, for a living. But it's also somewhat repetitive. Like there are certain expectations, catalogs pretty much, very similar every year. You change it up, you try to add as much high creativity to it as you can, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is repetitive. And so it's exciting to me to try something out of the box, and I think that's why I've been kind of hyping this gallery and this show. And then aside from that, and I've mentioned this on the vlog, but the fact that it's Monty Python and it's something that I feel really attached to, and that I grew up kind of loving, is just a super flattering and amazing thing that I got it got approved for licensing. But I also wanted to be clear about the fact that, that's part of why I've been highlighting that as part of the thing on the vlog. So there's that. So that's pretty cool. And then there's Quarterly Stories, which is my graphic novel. And this is just a beast, and it's taking a long time to complete. And part of why I think doing something like this Gallery 1988 thing is important is it's kind of like a good reality check too, for me, because like with quarterly stories, it feels so far off that I feel like almost like I don't have to worry too much about promoting or about like amplifying what I'm doing for it beyond what I'm already planning to do. Like, I'm already trying to do that, but it would be easy for me to kind of do that and then kind of almost like drop the ball until it's really go time and it's ready and it's printed or kickstarted or whatever I decide to do at that point when I'm completed with it. But it feels like doing a show like this is a good reality check of where I'm at with my fan base, where I'm at with my skill level. Am I gonna sell any prints? Typical stuff like, will people like it? I mean, like, these are good things to kind of like get used to feeling, because of course that's how I'm gonna feel when Quarterly Stories is done. So there's that element of it as well. Now, finally making a little more headway, but it's already 7:30. This is already an hour after I would have been home most days. So I know it's weird. It's like, I think if you're watching this vlog, and maybe you're not a creative, it won't be relatable. Like, why does it matter if you lose a couple hours in a day? But I think when you're a creative, when you have like kind of a schedule and when you have things that you're trying to make and accomplish, time becomes super valuable. And so losing time is just a very difficult thing. But now, even speaking about it, I feel like maybe I'm overreacting a little bit about losing a couple hours in a day. Alright, so getting back on the freeway after my little side route. Hopefully there's not a ton of traffic here, but you never know. And at this point I gotta just flow with it. I mean, that's kind of what I realized when I got to the gallery and the door was closed. It was just like, I'm gonna have to be comfortable with it and flow with it. It's kind of like doing these vlogs too. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, I would like to just be able to like sit down, focus, make notes, come up with kind of like the perfect thing to say on a vlog that people would like to hear, and really like articulate, make it thoughtful, and be able to kind of focus. And that's actually what prevented me, I think, along with other things. It's one of the things that prevented me when I stopped doing vlogs for a little bit, for like 3 months or something. One of the things that prevented me from returning to it was this idea of like, well, then I'll make something and I'll perfect it and I'll get the right equipment and everything like that. And then when it's all perfect and there's this perfect setup and like when the runway is cleared, then I'll take off. You know what I mean? And what I constantly have to remind myself of as an artist, and as just a human being who's trying to make something, is that window doesn't really exist for most people, and especially for myself. So a really good thing that I even at this time, need to be asking myself is, like, so I lost 2 hours. And why would that be upsetting? Like, why would it be upsetting to lose 2 hours? I mean, that is the situation I'm in. It's not going to change it to be upset. What will change it would be a time machine, and that I don't have. And if I had that, I might go back and, do certain things in my career differently. And, like, I don't know, maybe I would have majored in law. I don't know. Point being, in a world without time machines, in a world based in reality, you are in the situation you are in. And so, I think a lot of the times when you're trying to be creative, there's a temptation to be like, well, when I'm where that guy is, then I'll have a high output and I'll make my perfect book. Or when I have my outline like totally perfected, then I'll make this perfect thing. Or when Tuesday comes around and it's clear, then I'll do this. Or when, basically it's like wish thinking. And I think one of the issues with wish thinking is that it can be a good starting point. Like, a good starting point to a project could be a wish thinking kind of project, or a wish thinking exercise. Wow, you hear that wind? I wonder if any of this is recording, because it is so windy. It feels like my car is going to blow off the road. Really high winds right now. I mean, this is part of living in the desert, is we live in a valley and it's flat, so you get all this wind and it just starts picking up and picking up. The next thing you know, it's like, 40 or 50 mile an hour wind, and you're on a freeway, well, I don't know if it's 40 or 50. I'm not really an expert on that, but the point is, it's hitting the left side of my car very hard, to the point where I'm having to really course correct with my driving to kind of keep the car straight. Anyhow, this is a really rambly vlog, but I'm kind of feeling it. I'm feeling the topic. I think the topic right now is wish thinking, and I think I'll try to title it that too. But basically, it's easy to fall into a trap, at least for myself. I find that I will fall into traps where I am always looking for a 100% perfect conditions to excuse doing something with my life. Like even the band thing. Like, tomorrow we have band practice. This is a project I started pretty shortly after starting the vlog. If you look back a few vlogs, you can hear, some of the practice sessions. But like, part of what caused me to pause on creating music for so long was just having no collaborators. And then if I got a collaborator, it's like, it always kind of felt on pause, so we had a drummer and a bassist and a full band. And I think one of the advantages and one of the reasons that this Tuesday writing session and music session is actually even happening is the fact that, like, Josh and I really wanted to do music, so we're just committed. We're committed to pretty much every Tuesday. I mean, every once in a while there's, one of us goes on vacation with family or something like that. But, in general, like, we hit every Tuesday and we spend about an hour or two writing music and practicing. And I'm in a much better position than last year, where I was thinking about doing music and I had no songs. Now we have about 6 songs. Now, 6 songs in like close to a year may not seem like much to a lot of people, especially musicians. I mean, like, Josh and I, when we were in a band, we used to write, 6 songs every 2 or 3 months. But for us, and for the projects, and for the life situation that we're in, I feel like 6 songs is a hell of a lot better than none. And playing guitar is a lot better than I used to play guitar. I'll pick up my acoustic once every half a year, play some licks that I wrote 10 years ago. I'd rather, in an ideal world, we'd have like a full band already, and we'd have all the time in the world to write music and just focus on music. But that's not the world I live in, and that's not the world that currently exists for me. And so what do I want to do with the time I have? Do I want to make music? If so, it's going to cost time. And if it's going to cost time, then it's just a matter of budgeting my time and making what I can with what I have. Meaning, like, another way to kind of describe it would be like, if you're kind of running a marathon and you're looking at the guy who has the new shoes and like the running gear and like the perfect physique, and you're like, when I'm like him, then I'll run marathons. You're not gonna have a lot. You're not gonna have a lot of success in marathons. But if you're a person who's never done anything like running a marathon, and you decide, I want to run a marathon, try to run a marathon, and maybe you don't hit the same time as the guy who has all the gear. But like, you never know what his circumstance is. Like, what did that cost him to get all of that gear and all of that time? Point being, work with what you have. I mean, I know it's cliche. So, anyhow, on the note of the music, and then I'll get back to the greater theme. But, like, going back to talking about the music. So, not only do we have 6 songs, but we also had a point where we got a drummer, and then it seems like that drummer just kind of bailed. And that was very disheartening, and I was actually tempted to just stop, because he was an excellent drummer. He was a really good drummer, and at the age I'm at, it's really hard to find guys in my area to play music with, who will commit to like playing it once a week, and also on top of that, has similar taste and aesthetics as I do. And then, Josh, I'm sure, has similar struggles. So it's kind of one of those things where we were pretty disappointed, and we emailed a bunch of people, and it felt kind of desperate, like, hey, do you want to play in our band and stuff like that. But what's cool is this Tuesday, which is tomorrow, we're practicing with a drummer and a bassist. And that's the 2 members we've been kind of looking for, is a drummer and a bassist. We have 2 guys, and they're going to check us out. And if all goes well, we all gel, we all kind of like what we're doing, then maybe that'll be a permanent thing. Who knows? But the point being, like, when we lost our first drummer, it would have been easy to just kind of say, like, well, it was fun while it lasted, we're not going to get another drummer. Or when the conditions are perfect and when we know a million drummers, we can get a new drummer. It's easier to throw in the towel in a weird way. But if you work with what you have and you go, okay, well, we'll continue to write music because we're still committed, and then we'll see what happens. Work with what we have, work with who we know, and ask around, then we end up in a position where tomorrow we're getting to play with a bassist and a drummer. So we're one step closer to kind of where we want to be. may not be ideal, may not even work out, but you work with what you have, right? So tying into comics, like, I would like an ideal situation where I could just focus on my comics, and that's all I had to worry about all day. It's just working on my comic, getting this graphic novel completed. It's my full-time job. Don't have to worry about promoting it. Don't have to worry about anything. But that's not the position I'm in. I have a full-time career as an art director, and then, that's where I have to do some thinking, where it's like, if I think about my life, do I want to be the guy who has a 9-to-5, shows up at that 9-to-5, works overtime at that 9-to-5, everything professionally and artistically gets thrown into that 9-to-5, then I clock out and I go home, and I look forward to the days where I get to take some vacation time so we can travel, and that's it. Do I want to do that for like the next 20 or 30 years? Do I want that to be my life? Like, I like vacations and I love my family, and I love spending time with them, but I don't envision myself being very happy if that's the scenario, where it's like I literally just go to work, go home, watch some TV, accrue some vacation time, save up some money for vacation, go on vacation, go back to the 9-to-5 on repeat. Like, that's just never been my personality, to be content with that. Now, I'm not criticizing that, because I think I've talked about this and addressed it on the vlog before. Like, I'm all about the 9-to-5. Like, I'm all about a full-time job with a full-time wage, with full benefits, health insurance, and stability. And honestly, it can be really fun and challenging. And being an art director is super fun and super challenging. It's super stressful, but it's super rewarding. And it is working with art. So it's like I am in a position where, I'm getting paid to be an artist and think artistically and, design and illustrate for money. And that's an awesome position to be in. And I feel very fortunate. But that's not my all. That's not where I'm going to be 110% happy. Where I'll be happy is if I'm making my own stuff. And if I'm making my own art and my own stories, then I tend to be pretty content, and that actually affects that day job really positively. So anyhow, it's almost 8 o'clock. It's looking like I'll probably get home around 8:30, which is like 3 hours after work, which isn't too bad. But like I said, I think the thing that I'm taking away from this, and this was just kind of started as a rambly vlog, but I feel like the takeaway I can take from this is that I need to be better at observing the conditions that I'm dealing with, whatever the conditions are, the resources that I'm dealing with, be it monetary resources or whatever, and just realistic, like the body that I'm dealing with, like when it comes to working out, doing yoga and stuff. Like, I have the body I'm dealing with. I have the age that I have when I approach that, and working with what I've got. Like, I am not an athlete. I've never been athletic. I've never been a guy who works out a lot. So when it comes to working out, for me, results and success are measured on a far different bar than like somebody who might have been active and working out like their entire lives. Obviously, expectations are probably a lot higher for somebody like that. But what I can do is like set reasonable expectations, ambitious expectations for myself, considering the fact that I'm not a guy who exercises. So how do I start making the adjustment to being the guy who exercises, which I'm now starting to become, right? And then also, once again, do I wait to kind of like push myself in that area of my life until conditions are perfect? Because if I do that, I sincerely think I would just remain not exercising. Because I guess what I'm getting at is I think if we're looking for perfect conditions to do something to better ourselves, or to create something, or to pursue a career, I think if we're waiting for perfect conditions, I think waiting for perfect conditions can translate to procrastination. Meaning like the wait for the perfect conditions becomes a crutch. It becomes an excuse. And that can be comforting, but it doesn't do a lot of good in getting progress towards your goals, especially as an artist. So anyhow, yeah, I'm totally rambling, and I hope you guys are finding this helpful. I'm kind of curious. I think there was a little bit early on that I might cut out of this, where there were some lags and some slow time. But like I'm curious, when I do that, am I gonna look back on this vlog and regret it because it's so rambly? Or will I maybe feel like I do right now, which is right now I actually feel positive about the content that's come out on the vlog, like this, towards the end of this drive. Because I really think, at least for me, maybe I'm just saying what I want to hear right now, but I feel like as an artist I need to work on this. It's like almost working on an inverse form of contentment, because I think that, at least for myself, there's a tendency, like even when I'm driving here stuck on the freeway, imagining somebody else's life where they're in a fast car and they aren't on a freeway, and maybe their car's worth more, or their work is closer to where they are. And I think a lot of that is discontented thinking. Meaning, if you're content with your car, then you'll be content to not really care about what anyone else is driving, because my car is what I have, and it's doing all right. It's getting me there. And I think being content in where you are doesn't mean being stagnant. But what I mean by like inverse contentment is the idea of unstagnant contentment. Meaning, being happy with with the circumstances that you have, but also looking at the circumstances that you have and trying to work within whatever restraints and parameters you have to achieve something. Man, I hope this is making sense. If this isn't making sense, let me know. So yeah, so that's kind of what I'm going to try to think about when I get home and I'm kind of exhausted because I had a long drive, and maybe frustrated because I was stupid and I didn't read the full hours of the gallery to do my drop-offs. So now I have these 50 prints, just hanging out that were at the gallery, and now I'm going to have to make that drive again, probably, the end of next week. Instead of going down that rabbit hole, which I almost just started going down just now, it might be better to kind of think about, all right, it's 8:30. I have this much time to get my exercise done, my panel a day done, and then I'll probably try to sleep so that I can do it all over again tomorrow, and not wait for perfect conditions. Because I think the more destructive part of myself and of a lot of artists is that tendency to get home and be like, conditions weren't perfect today, so I'm just gonna watch TV, or conditions aren't perfect today, I'm gonna just have a drink. Which, by the way, I might have like a very short glass of whiskey after my workout while I work on my page. So I'm hoping I can keep this energy and this momentum and this hopefully positivity going. And I hope this was helpful to somebody, or at least interesting. So I'm gonna head home, and then we'll see. I mean, we'll see what gets done, what is possible in imperfect conditions. And that's almost like, I think, what I should focus on and maybe like think about is like actually embracing imperfection and imperfect conditions, because that's just the nature of life. So and also, I don't know if you've found this, I've found this for myself as a creative, that often when given all the right circumstances, I don't necessarily get more done. In fact, I might actually be less productive in times where I have all the time in the world. Because when you have all the time in the world, then it's like, well, I'll just watch this, just noodle around, sleep in, take some naps. Then before you know it, you might have less time than you had on the day where conditions were imperfect. The other nice thing to think about, at least for me, is when I get home, me facing the challenge of getting this done, accomplishing it, hopefully still, getting a healthful amount of sleep and rest. One of the positives that will come out of it is it's going to build and solidify the habit of working on it. Because if you can get to the point where you can tackle a project on a daily basis, even on stormy days, even on days where, things don't work out or where time is lost, at that point you're kind of developing character, and you're also developing stronger habits because like, once again, if you can get, I guess to use the band practice thing as an analogy, if you can get to band practice during a tornado or during a storm, how easy will it be to go to band practice on a sunny day? It's just inevitably, when you kind of weather storms, you become a better navigator within those storms. And if you choose to sail certain vessels in storms that might be harder to steer, but maybe they're faster and they have better direction, like, to me that would be comics. if you keep at it, like that inevitably is going to build a stronger work ethic of getting that stuff done. So yeah, so I hope this was helpful. I'm going to go home. I'll follow up with you guys. I'm probably just going to say my log out now. Maybe not. I'll get home and then I'll follow up with you guys and I'll let you know how I did. Did I manage to get my workout done? Did I manage to get my comic done? Did I post, one piece of artwork from a while ago that I wanted to do on Instagram? Did I stay consistent, and we'll see how that goes. And then I'd like to hear in the comment section, like, what sort of like, boulders or whatever you feel are getting in the way of you getting your projects done. What are some of the hurdles you've been having to clear lately? And would you find it helpful to kind of view it as there's no perfect weather, there's no perfect conditions. So would it help? Does it help you? I don't know. For me, it's something I need to think about more frequently, is like really learning to embrace imperfect conditions, because those are what build art. That's how art is made. And I think most artists throughout generations have had those imperfect conditions and maybe written about them and made stronger work for it. All right. So, finally in the Antelope Valley, so I will let you guys go.
Okay, so here's what I've penciled so far, and here's what I've penciled tonight. So, basically, a lot of symbolism of what a panic attack feels like. And that was the panel I penciled tonight. So, comicking for the night is done. Whew, man. I did my workout. I got set up and just frankly wasn't feeling it, and just sat down, trusted the fact that I built this habit, and managed to get my comicking done for the night, and one step closer to a finished page. So anyhow, what started out as a tough day has ended up being a little bit more encouraging. Thanks to those of you who've subscribed, liked, shared, and commented on my YouTube videos. It helps keep this thing going. If you haven't yet, go on my YouTube page if you're watching this or something else, and just hit that little subscribe button. It helps me keep going, helps the channel grow, and honestly, it also helps you keep updated whenever these things update. So, alright, that'll do it, and I will see you guys next week.